Educators now have more details surrounding Governor Walker's budget, and of course the impacts of the budget repair bill on education is still in limbo. But there is another document that will also have a huge impact on our schools. In an interview I had with Governor Walker, he told me that in the next 6 weeks he plans to announce his education reform package. And as you may expect, some of his ideas are raising concerns among some educators. That's tonight's Assignment Education Report. The Walker Plan to make Wisconsin's education system world-class. This document was released on the campaign trail a few months ago. The governor plans to unveil the ideas in this document as part of his education reform package in late March or April.
Making sure that every kid has access and an opportunity to great education system is really an imperative for us.
One way Governor Walker hopes to achieve this goal is to reform failing schools. He wants to do this by grading schools on a scale of A to F.
For us, it's really ultimately about trying to identify what schools in our state are succeeding, are scoring the best, and then how do we replicate that everywhere else across the state.
The governor wants grades awarded based on criteria such as graduation rates, passing rates, enrollment in advanced placement courses, standardized test scores, and teacher and administrator evaluations.
My concern around those first four really goes to the issue of, okay, if it is important that every student pass, then they'll all pass. If it's important that we have AP classes, we'll have AP classes. You know, if that becomes the criteria for whether this is a good school district, there's easy solutions.
The fear among some educators is that expectations may be lowered in the classroom to make sure kids pass and therefore schools get passing grades. Educators are also concerned about a system where a school gets credit for a student who can achieve an easy A, but may not get as much credit for a teacher who was able to pull a D student to a B student. Governor Walker says his legislative team is looking to make considerations in those situations.
For us, it's about, it's certainly not going to penalize someone who takes, an A-plus type student and make sure that they continue to be an A-plus student, but it shouldn't penalize somebody who gets a kid that starts out maybe testing below their age group on some categories but moves them up. There should be, some added consideration for people who started out with a challenge and were able to bring those kids up, even if it's not an A+, but several grades from where they were at before.
If a school is labeled a persistently failing school, schools will be required to sign turnaround contracts. In exchange for a commitment of resources and support from the state, school boards and administrators will select one of 4 turnaround models. The first one looks like this and asks for administrators to be replaced.
I don't know that they're going to have the capacity to walk into a building and lead, because they won't know the terrain. They won't know the family. They won't know the situation. Just because they're some expert from the outside doesn't mean that things will work better. Not necessarily.
Option 2 looks like this and asks for administrators and no less than 50% of the staff to be replaced.
If we're walking out of the building, half of that staff that knows the children, knows the families, knows the situation of the community, and we have 50% new staff, new teachers, I'm not sure where that gets us to a situation which makes it better for children.
Most of our schools in this state are overwhelmingly successful, and we need to replicate that. But for the handful that are failing and failing miserably, we've got to give those superintendents and school boards the ability to come on in, just like you would in an emergency situation. You take things over, you bring in a new team, and you try something completely different.
Option 3 looks at closing a school and reopening it as a charter school.
That was the solution for all these problem schools in the Milwaukee public school system. So we established all these private charters. Test scores are no better. So I don't see that as a viable option, really not a good option, not one that's going to do better for kids.
The final option is closing the school and sending kids elsewhere.
That is really the problem in the rural areas. There is no school around the corner.
Governor Walker says that if closing a school or turning a school into a charter isn't an option in a particular school district, then they would choose a different turnaround model, which is part of the flexibility of this proposal.
This gives support for school boards and administrators to select one of a number of turnaround options. It gives them the power to do that. They're just not locked into the status quo right now, which is where they don't really have any of these options.
Now, Governor Walker told me that some members of the legislature are debating the education reform package at this time. He says the bill is about a month or two away from being announced.
So there still may be some changes in the way Governor Walker plans to deal with reforming these failing schools.
Yes, everything that Governor Walker and I talked about in this report that you just saw were all of his ideas on the campaign trail. Right now, that legislative team, they're working on it, and so some of these ideas may be tweaked, or this may be exactly how he rolls it out. We'll find out at the end of March or April.
Good to bring it to the forefront because all eyes obviously right now on the budget.
Absolutely.